Hello everyone, welcome back to JP's Budget Collecting in our weekly look back at the CBSI Hot Top 10 from 6 months ago. Today we're looking back at the Hot Top 10 from October 26, 2018, and I am recording this on April 24th, 2019, which is a little earlier than normal because I'm going to Infinity War tomorrow night, or to Endgame, I guess, tomorrow night, and so I'm not going to be able to record this when I normally do on Thursdays. But, so, this week, kind of an interesting list. There's several, and it's dominated by incentive covers, and just kind of hot covers. There's a couple of spec characters. There was probably an underrated, prior to this, Silver Age key, and yeah, so with that, let's get into the list and see what we can learn this week about how these books did and what made them maintain or lose value from when they hit the list. First up is Spider-Girl's number 1, the 1 in 50 Dekal cover. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that guy's right name right. It's D-E-K-A-L. This was just kind of a cool cover. It was a high incentive on a book that wasn't necessarily ordered in high numbers. This is part of the SpiderGwen crossover, one of the sub-series that came out of that. And right out of the gate, it had jumped up and it was so it was a 1 in 50 and it was going for above ratio of $60 to $70. And basically, this book is kind of maintained around ratio, which is actually pretty good for one of these 1 in 50s. It's still going for about $40. I think it's just a cover that people like. And, slabs are kind of an interesting thing with that. With this particular book, currently they're listed for $175 to $180. But what I found was you were sleeping until I started talking. You were over there asleep. You are such a turkey. So we're going to leave the cat in again, maybe, if she sort of behaves herself. But lay down. This book, still going for $40 for raw copies. Slabs are currently listed for $180 to $190. The thing that's interesting about this is that there's only been 3 9.8 slab sales, all now a couple months old, but they've been all over the board. They've been 67, 110, and 190. And the 190 was actually, I think, the second one. And when there's a book like this that's new, I have noticed this, that slab sales tend to jump all over the place when I first start getting slabs back. People aren't sure where to price it. People pay sometimes way too much early on for a slab when they could probably get it for less if they're a little bit patient. So on a new book, when the slab's first coming out, if you really want it, I think it's worth your time to kind of shop around and not just jump on the first slab you see. Because a lot of times it takes these guys a little while. This doesn't work for all books, but sometimes for a book like this, it tends to take a little while for the price to kind of settle into where it is. And you don't want to be the guy that paid $180 when the only other sales have been for $110 and $70. So with that, let's move on to number 9 on the list. And this is another kind of just cool cover. And this is Batgirl number 28. Another one of those Middleton covers. Everybody talked about that this was going to be the next Batgirl 23. And that this was even a better cover. And I would find you could make a pretty strong argument that this is a better cover than Batgirl 23. I think it, depends on who you are and what your tastes are, but to me, this is just as good a cover, if not better. But, so it was $10 out of the gate, and now this book can be had for cover plus shipping. 9.8, literally, the last 2 sales, one went for $15.50. I'm not kidding. $15.50 plus shipping, but $15.50 is what the auction went for, and the one before that went for $21.50. This book, all the recent sales have been $30 or under for slabbed 9.8 copies of this book. Now the listings are a little higher. People are listing it more in the $40 to $50 range for the buy it nows and that kind of stuff. There's not really a listing for that right now, but this book could be had in a 9.8 for less than $30. So what the heck? What's the difference? The difference is we knew this cover was coming. This cover was out, I want to say, maybe 2 months before the book, well before pre-order cutoff. So people bought it. The hype from 23, they weren't going to miss out this time. People bought it. There's a ton of these out there. Everybody got it originally. I think lots of people bought multiple copies thinking this was going to be 23. They speculated on this book before it came out. But because it wasn't a surprise, there were plenty of them. And it has not maintained its value at all. And so this book could still be had for basically cover price. You'll probably be finding it at dollar bins in a few years. Although, if I wish I'd have seen that 9.8 for $15.50, because I might have jumped on that just to have because it is a pretty cover, and it would have been kind of cool to have it in a slab for $15. That's cheaper than the friggin' slab price. So, that's Batgirl number 28 at number 9. At number 8 is Spider-Man 76. And you might be going, what the heck is Spider-Man 76? This is apparently the first appearance of Crown. And you might be going, who the heck is Crown? I've read a lot of Spider-Man comics over the years. I had no idea who this was. But apparently this is the rumored antagonist or villain in the Morbius movie, or was at the time. This book jumped from a dollar bid book to a $20 to $30 book. I'll be honest, I didn't even look to see if it's been confirmed that Crown is going to be in that movie, or if it's still all just speculation. I haven't heard anything more really about the Morbius movie here lately, but it's now back down to a $5 to $10 book. So it didn't return to the dollar bins. But now it's just basically acknowledged as a really cheap key. I mean, people are still buying it for $5 to $10. Most of the listings, people are trying to get a little more. They're still listing it for $10 to $15. But, yeah. And there are no slab sales in this book. So, with that, let's move on to number 7. Number 7 is The Adventures of Sly Cooper, number 2. This is basically just kind of a rare promotional comic that came inside a video game magazine. Not a lot of these out there. I feel like this, though, maybe was driven almost completely by, I hate to say it, CBSI and their Topher and their True First and that kind of stuff. There are, back again, huh? And so basically they talked about the first one, and then they talked about this one, and it was hitting $100 plus for this comic book. And it is fairly rare, but there's not a lot going on here. Now this book can be had for $25 to $40. Although the listings, the only two currently listed are listed for $90 and $100, but there have been no sales recently more than $40. And they've been as low as $25. So don't be fooled if you have an interest in this book. But I don't really know what was driving this other than it was rare. This seems like one that people started talking about was, oh, this is a important rare comic, and people went a little nuts with it. And so I think this was completely spec driven. Really, you stop. This is 2 weeks in a row. Stop. So that was number 7 on the list, Adventures of Sly Cooper, number 2. And number 6 on the list is what I would consider a book that was previously underrated, and a little bit of spec maybe it's put it back where it belongs. And this is Fantastic Four Annual number 6, which is the first appearance of Annihilus. And back in the fall, there was rumors that Annihilus was going to be an Endgame. I think most of those rumors have been sort of squashed, or, well, they faded away, and I don't think people are expecting that, although tomorrow night we'll all find out. But this book jumped from basically a 7.0, a CGC 7.0 was going for $75 back in November of 17. And by last October, it was going for $600, and it was setting new records. The book has cooled since then. It's back down to like more 7.0s are going for $450. 8.0s are now going for that $650-ish range. Raw copies, depending on condition, range anywhere from $60 to well over $300 for a raw copy. But the reason I say this is a little bit underrated, because not just is it the appearance of an important villain, it's also the first appearance of Franklin Richards. And so for that book to have been going for what it was going for prior to this spike was kind of surprising. This is also So this is just a book that I think is more now kind of where it should be, and for Franklin, and a dual first appearance, Internet Silver Age annual Fantastic Four book. I just think it's a book that's more where it belongs. At number 5 on the list, we have The Rejected #1, the second print. And this was just kind of a hot indie book in the fall. It was a very low print run on the first print. It was a very low print run on the second print. So people were jumping all over it. There was lots of speculation about this character and that this was going to get optioned. And so then the second print was going for $30 to $40. The first print was going for $50. Now you can get both of them to combine for $50. The second print is going from $10 to $20. The first print is down to $20 to $30. There really hasn't been no follow through on this. It's lost a bunch of its heat. It's still a fairly popular kind of indie comic book, but I don't think there's been any other issues. I think it was a one-shot. And so there's been no follow through, so this book has dropped back considerably because of that. At number 4 on the list, we have another one of our high incentives. This is an Unstoppable Wasp #1, the 1 in 50 Putri cover. And then again, just another really cool cover, 1 in 50 on a book that wasn't necessarily ordered, and even though it's a #1, not ordered in traditionally high numbers for a #1. So fairly tough to get. 2 weeks in after it had been released, it had made the honorable mention list last week or the previous week, and then this week it was at $135 for a 1 in 50 2 weeks in. That's big numbers for an incentive, particularly a 1 in 50, going for almost triple ratio. That's a lot. But now this book still has some value. It's still going for basically ratio. There have been no recent raw sales that I could find really, but they're currently listing them for about $45, and I think the previous one that I could find was still in that $40 to $50 range. But you can go buy one right now. There's a couple listings for $45, so it's going a little under ratio. Slab sales, there's only been one 9.8 slab sale. It went for $200. There's only been one 9.6. It went for $90. So this book is basically falling back to ratio. There doesn't appear to be a lot of them out there that are for sale right now, but there also doesn't appear to be a high market for it right now either. So that was Unstoppable Wasp #1. I do like Putri as an artist, but it really hasn't. It's basically back down to where it was as an incentive, if not a little lower. Next up is a book that I'm going to ask you guys if you have any idea why it's on the list. I'm going to show it to you. This is Return of Wolverine #1, the second print. Does anybody remember what made this book important? Why people cared about it? And that's because it was an error. There was Star Wars. There were pages from Star Wars Dr. Aphra in the book. They did a recall on it. They're not getting up there. So they recalled it. They put out a print the thing, and people, although I don't necessarily understand because it really wasn't that rare, people were paying $20 for it back in the fall, and they are still paying $15 to $20 for this book. I do not necessarily understand some of the error stuff. I don't really understand. That's just me as a collector. I don't really care about some of that stuff, but there is a market for errors. This book seems to have a market. So that was number 3 on the list, Return of Wolverine #1. Number 2 on the list was Invincible Iron Man #10, another second print. I should have said second prints. There's 3 second prints on this list this week, in terms of things that were dominating the list. And this is, of course, the first rescue. The first time Pepper Potts wears the rescue armor. And the second print has her actually on the cover with the armor. So that's why this was the popular one. And I thought the cat was going to make another loop. She hopped down, and I thought she was coming right back. But so basically what happened in the fall is a photo leaked of Gwyneth Paltrow in the rescue armor. And this book went from basically a $2 to $3 book to a $75 to $100 book in a minute. And yes, the cat did come back. You are such a turkey the last 2 weeks. Why? So jump to a $75 to $100 book. Now it's dropped all the way back, even though the movie comes out tomorrow. We know we're going to see her in the armor, and it might be a really cool scene, but it's dropped all the way back to a $20 to $30 book. I should say you guys are going to see this video after the movie's been out for 2 days, so it might not be a $20 to $30 book anymore if she has a really cool scene as rescue. Let's see, what did I have? There have been almost no slab sales for this. There's been 196 since the spike. It went for like $50, but there have been no 98 sales. So right now it's currently a $20 to $30 book. There is something I've noticed about this because, like I said, the movie comes out tomorrow from when I'm recording this, 2 days before the video will be posted. You're driving me crazy. Just stay put. And the peak happened based on the photo, not the movie. And I've noticed that trailers and photos tend to spike the books more than the actual movie itself. The first reveal of some of these characters and scenes tend to get people more excited, tend to get people chasing the books. By the time the movie comes out, people are used to the idea that they're going to be there. There's a little more of a calm response. There's actually if you follow like all the Captain Marvel stuff, and whether you think the movie was good or bad or whatever, even in the lead up, and some of that had to do with some of the speculation or whatever, but it's not just that movie. It's been a lot of movies I've noticed this. I don't think it's universal. I think actually some of the Edge of Spider-Verse stuff was the opposite. After the movie came out and everybody realized just how good it was, it did the opposite. But I think, particularly with the MCU, a lot of these first reveals, and whether it be in a trailer or a photo in this case or whatever, tend to actually spike the book harder than the movie itself, which is just kind of an interesting phenomenon that I've been noticing. So with that was Invincible Iron Man number 10, the first rescue. Hopefully she'll get a really cool scene in the movie that I'm going to go see tomorrow, and that you guys, most of you will have seen by the time you're watching this video. And last but not least, on the top 10 from 10/26/18 was maybe the cover of the year, and that is SpiderGwen number 1, the hung variant. I don't know if that's how you pronounce that guy's name. This was a 1 in 100 that apparently maybe was not even a 1 in 100 because a lot of stores were limited to like 1 or 2, even if they ordered more. It seemed like this was a cover that people went bonkers over, and it is beautiful. You can't argue with that. It's a gorgeous cover, and people went nuts. A 1 in 100 week of was going for $2 to $250 right out of the gate. And we knew it was coming. We knew the cover was coming. People were excited about it before it even came out. It only went out, as you will see in the next couple lists. I'm sure there's at least 2 more times I think it makes the list going forward. This book continued to grow, and it did peak for a while. It has come back from where it peaked, but still, right now, raw copies are going to cost you $450 plus. 9.6s are going to cost you $500 plus. 9.8s are going to cost you $800 to $850, with listings higher than that. Typically, a lot of the listings are higher than that. This is just a book and a cover that people love. I shouldn't say a book. It's a cover that people love. And I'm going to point out something that I find very interesting, because most of you that are watching this would love to have this book, but you want it because of the cover. You're not necessarily interested in reading this. I'm actually a SpiderGwen fan. I will say this series got off to what I would consider a rough start. After the Jason Latour run, which I really enjoyed. I had stuck with it when they got through the SpiderGwen crossover stuff. It has improved since then, although it's still not as good as it was when Latour was writing it, in my opinion. But nobody's buying this for the story that's inside it. They're buying it for the cover. And I understand why people don't do this, but I do find it interesting. You can go on eBay. Raw copies are going to cost you $450, as I said. Or you can buy a Mexican variant that looks it's the exact same cover. It just has a little bit of Spanish on it, and it is $25. I'm not telling you to buy the Mexican variant, but if you just want to look at it, you can pay $450 or you could pay $25. Obviously, the Mexican variant is never going to have the value long term. But if you just want the art, you can get it for a fairly cheap price. So that's just my thoughts. I haven't really thought about that. I've noticed that phenomenon on some other books that are like really popular, that are mostly about the cover art. Some of them I think has to do with what's inside too. This one, because it's just about the cover art, I find that differential to be a little more odd. But that's just me. So that was this week's list. We had several, like I said, incentive covers on here. 1 in 50s and 1 in 100. We had 3 second prints. We had another couple of specs that didn't amount to anything, and we had another book that was maybe a Silver Age book that was a little bit underrated and is more where it needs to be anyway. So thanks for watching, everybody. I really appreciate it, and we will catch you next time.